you everyone for coming to ISVCon 2012. I hope you all had a good breakfast. To kick off the start of the ISVCon first day, I'd like to introduce Rob Walling of Software by Rob.
Thank you. This is my first ISVCon/SIC, so I want to thank you guys for coming, and I really want to thank Sue for tracking me down, convincing me to come, and for all of her hard work, certainly with the ASP team. Putting on a conference is a thankless job, and it requires an enormous amount of work. So if I could just get a nice round of applause for Sue. Okay, so I'm up here for about an hour. I have about between 45 and 50 minutes of material, and then some Q&A after that. So I do have some little intermissions in between segments, and I hope to keep it kind of light and moving. My name is Rob, and I'm very approachable. I'll be here until tomorrow morning, so let's chat if you have questions after the talk. I see a lot of familiar faces, and that's cool. If you want to find out more about me, I blog at softwarebyrob.com about exactly the stuff I'm going to be talking about. I'm also going to have these slides up. I'll give you a URL at the end because I have a lot of tactical information. I'm a tactician rather than a strategician. Strategery. So I have a lot of very tactical stuff, and I don't want you to feel like you have to type or write everything down. So that'll be up on my blog at the end. I'll leave that URL. So I have one goal when I speak. Frankly, when I consume media, when I'm listening to someone talk or listening to an audiobook, listening to a book, I'm trying to glean things out of it that are actionable, right? I want to be able to take it away and implement it in the next week or two. I love high-level ideas. I love Seth Godin and those kinds of people, but I tend to just get really excited, and then I don't know what to do with the fact that I want to be a linchpin. I don't know what to do. So my goal is that everyone in this room, whether you're just starting out, whether you're just starting, you're going to start writing your code today, or whether you're in your business 10 years or 15 years, that you take away something that you can implement in the next week or two that actually makes a difference in your business. And so with that, I'm hoping you're thinking the same thing. What's in it for you? Because there's a lot of really smart people in here who make a lot of money per hour, and you're giving me 1 hour of your time. So I want to respect that. And I'm going to be talking about 4 things today, and I'm hoping that it covers the gamut of from beginner to more advanced. I'm going to be talking about why you should start marketing the day you start coding if you're launching a new product. I'm going to talk about how to write a game-changing headline. I'm going to talk about why boring products have a higher chance of succeeding, and I'm going to talk about how to double the revenue you receive from each of your customers. And we're going to look at concrete examples, concrete actions for each of these. A little bit about my background. I'm not a big fan of background slides, but since I imagine a lot of you don't know me here, you got to be thinking, okay, this guy's going to give me a bunch of advice. Why should I listen to him? What credentials does he have? So I'm a software developer. Have been writing code since I was a kid. Been doing it professionally for about 13 years. I make my full-time income from products. I haven't done consulting for about 5 years, and I have a portfolio of small applications. Some of them are web-based, some are downloadable. So one I've been working on most recently for about a year is called HitTail. It's an SEO keyword tool that mines your website's traffic in real time, and it tells you that the low-hanging SEO terms that you should be targeting that aren't. I have an app called .NET Invoice. It's web-based invoicing software. And I have one called Wedding Toolbox that's a wedding website builder. So it's very niches, but they're all very tightly niched. I'm a solo practitioner. I tend to be the only guy, and I have a team of contractors who work for me. I have virtual assistants, designers, and such. Anywhere between 6 and 9 different people who work for me on a contract basis in a month, up to about 300 hours total that I outsource each month. So I am like a micro ISV or a micropreneur, as I call it. My blog I already mentioned, and then I wrote a book a couple years ago that's about what I do. So I borrow things from that for this talk, but it's called Start Small, Stay Small, because I'm not really big on hiring a bunch of employees. So, all right, 4 topics today. First one is how to start marketing the day you start coding. So, show of hands, who in here uses Dropbox? All right, so before Dropbox launched, they had an email list of 200,000 people before they launched their product. The way they did that is they had a really cool explainer video, and you can go find this somewhere online. It doesn't play live here. But they had a video, they drove traffic to a landing page, they talked about the idea they were building, and however long it took them, 6 months to build this product, they were just slamming the marketing. And they were doing two things with that. One, they were validating that anyone cared about their idea. Because if they had 0 emails, 3 months in, they would have pivoted or bailed. And the second thing they did is they had this 200,000 person list. So the day they launched, they emailed all these people and had this huge customer base right from the start. Yeah. Lighting.
You're in the dark. I would like to light.
Oh, I'm in the dark? Okay. All right, so I'm going to keep going, but
Because we can't see how handsome you are.
please. So I wrote a book I mentioned. Is there a better place for me to stand then? Or does it matter that I'm in the dark? Everyone see me here? All right. So, except now I have to turn around to see my slides. So I wrote this book, right, about 2 years ago. Before I wrote a word of the book is like 3 to 6 months of time, right? If you have profitable software products that you can invest time in, and you're going to instead take that time and invest it in a book, you have to get something back. You're not going to become a millionaire, but in my mind, I was like, if I make maybe $5,000 or $6,000 from this book, I can justify it all this time. So the first thing I did before I wrote a line of this book was to put up a landing page, and this is the actual landing page. If you look at this landing page, it's really one sentence of content, because this is just the title, and this down here is the call to action and the form. The only sentence is the startup book that assumes you don't have $6 million of venture funding sitting in your bank account. That's it. So it's one sentence. I got 600 emails, right? So I'm not Dropbox. I didn't get 200,000. But in my head, if I converted just a couple hundred of those, and I was selling a paperback combo, it was about $30 price point. If I got a couple hundred of those, and that was about $6,000. And I was like, well, let's do this. So then I went into my basement. I wrote the book. I launched the book. I wound up selling 300 copies at $30 a pop when I launched to this list. And so I made $9 grand, which was just, beyond my wildest imagination that 300 people would buy the book. And then, since then, it's sold 9,000 copies. So I didn't count on the 9,000, and I wasn't writing it for the 9,000. But if I had gotten 0 emails, I wouldn't have moved forward with it. The other thing, I throw a conference in Las Vegas called MicroConf, and the first year, a lot of people in here know if you've thrown a conference, you have to write a check for $15,000 or $20,000 before you really know if you're going to sell tickets and stuff. And that's the scary thing to me. That's a lot of money. So before we had a venue, we had this landing page, and we had these speakers. These are folks that we know, and I, got them to agree to speak at the conference, wherever it might be. And we got, I'm trying to think, it was about 500 or 600 emails before I booked a venue, because then I at least knew there was enough interest. So you can take this one step further, go beyond a landing page. This is a colleague of mine. I mentored him with some of his stuff. But he had an app that he wound up not launching this app, but it was basically tournament management software. And you can see he has some screenshots here. Now the screenshots are actually just mock-ups. This is not a real app, but he built a real sales website using WordPress. And so it's you might hear the term smoke test, but basically it's kind of a SaaS sales website. You click through, you get by me, you click by me, and it says, thanks for checking out. We're almost done. If you're interested, if you're really interested, give us your email. He wound up not building the app. There was interest in it, but he frankly lost interest in the niche. But it was a nice smoke test for him to learn about what marketing approaches worked, because he tried Twitter, he tried some Facebook ads, he tried some other things, and he was able to figure out what was going to work for him down the line, as well as just to figure out if the idea was viable. So typically I hear two objections to this. Especially, being a developer, I understand the mindset. It's like, well, I have this idea, and if I put it up on a landing page, won't someone else steal it and do it for me? The problem with this objection is if someone's going to steal your idea now and out market you or get to market first, if your only advantage is that you're going to try to get to market first, then they're going to beat you in 3 months when you launch, because you're going to launch. If the idea is successful, someone else is going to implement the same thing, and they're going to cream you. You have to be able to outmarket them in the long term. Just being first is not enough. So the fact that someone might steal your idea is, it's just not a worthwhile objection. Not a reason not to do this. I'll put it that way. Second thing is, I don't have time because I'm too busy building my app, right? Putting the landing page is well, it takes your eye off the ball, basically, of building a product. But again, if you're building a product no one's going to buy, and if you're sitting in your basement for 6 months and you don't know if anyone's going to buy it, for me it's the not knowing that's almost worse than anything, right? It's the lack of confidence that you're going to be able to sell a bunch of copies of this app, that you're going to actually be able to make it profitable when you're sitting, in a basement or bedroom coding this thing up. So, I think I've already talked about why you should do it, but basically it's to validate the idea, to give yourself the confidence as you go through those nights and weekends, or the daytime hours for some of you guys, that the idea actually has some merit. And it's to give you a marketing reality check on different channels of marketing. If you want to send some Facebook ads to it, you can pretty quickly, and pretty quickly glean if people on Facebook are gonna want to use it, or Twitter, or if your blog audience, or you can get an idea of what channels are going to be working. You have a nice part. You put together a list of 500 people who are interested in the app, and you can pretty quickly email 4 or 5 of them, run a small beta. You don't have to go out seeking beta users. You have them right there. It's really nice. I've seen this used over and over and over. And your best launch day ever. Frankly, launch day should be your best sales day for the first 6 months, potentially the first year of your app. That's what I like to tell entrepreneurs I work with. Get this in your head that the first day should be a huge wave, and you should always be trying to reproduce that for the next year of your app. If you're launching a SaaS app, it's fantastic because that huge wave, basically carries through because it's recurring revenue. And if you're a one-time app, then you should have a nice big chunk of money that you can use to then fund your development and fund anything else you need. It's a bummer to launch an app and sell 2 copies and then look around and say, what do I do now, right? But if you sell 30, 40, 50 copies your first day, it really is a nice victory. So I talked about there being some practical things. I can't just talk about high-level stuff, so I'm going to talk just briefly about the quickest, simplest way. I put up a bazillion landing pages, and I found there's some really easy ways to do it. And if I'm assuming the audience is more technical, but I also give a lesser technical way to do it. First thing, install WordPress, then install the WordPress Coming Soon plugin. I'm pretty sure the plugin is free. It might be $19 now, but it's essentially free. And it's a really, really solid plugin. Or you can buy a HTML landing page for $7. I bought a bunch of these from themeforce.net, and they're really sharp, right? I'm not a designer. I used to outsource this stuff custom. I used to outsource landing pages. But now you can buy really nice ones for between $7 and $10. That's if you don't want to do the WordPress approach. And just throw up static HTML and hook it up to MailChimp. Or if you don't want to do any coding, then go to LaunchRock or KickoffLabs.com. And these are SaaS apps that put up landing pages. And there's a cost to them. I think one of them is $9 a month and another one's $19. So it depends on your comfort with these other steps. But frankly, you write a little bit of copy. You get one of these steps implemented, and you have a landing page. Now your work's not done there. It does only take a couple hours, but you have to drive traffic and do some other stuff. But frankly, just the landing page is a pretty simple first step. Remember, these slides you can download at the end. This is the WP plugin I'm talking about. This is what it looks like. You can change the background, you can change all this stuff, but it comes pre-wired. You basically just plug in your MailChimp, I think, API key, and it just sends it to MailChimp. So if you want to build more of the smoke test, that full sales, the SaaS website I showed you, it's a little more involved, but it's easy to do with WordPress. There's something called the SaaS theme, or you can buy a premium theme from one of these 3 guys. And they have these SaaS themes that are pre-built. That, of course, takes a little longer to do. But just to give you an idea of what these things look like, these are WordPress themes here that are $70 or $80. I mean, they're relatively inexpensive. And so, yes, these are not the most gorgeous things you've ever seen, but man, they're great for getting something up in about 6 hours. And they're really nice frameworks for you to start, plugging your copy in and not having to really think about designing something from scratch and spending weeks doing it. So there's just a few samples to give you an idea. And original. So, if you want more, there's obviously more to talk about with this. I wrote a blog post called Why You Should Start Marketing the Day You Start Coding. It goes into some more depth. That's on my blog. And then if you want to start sending some traffic to it, I kept getting the question after I did this talk. People would say, well, how do I get, I want to do a little bit of advertising. So I wrote this other blog post called The 5-Minute Guide to Cheap Start of Advertising. And it's kind of these hacks that I've used on Reddit, Facebook, buy, sell ads, AdWords. There's one other that I forget. But it's hacks that I've used to try to get really cheap clicks. And that Dharmesh published that on Startups. So that's your further reading if you're interested. Okay, deep breath. So 4 segments, 1 segment down. Next one is called How to Write a Game-Changing Headline. I've been writing headlines, gosh, about 8 or 9 years. And I developed a system that's pretty simple. It's got 3 steps. If you're a professional copywriter and this is what you do for a living, you probably have your own system. And so maybe you'll take a snooze or walk out during this. But this is a system I found that works really well. It's great scaffolding especially for kind of developer-minded folks who are trying to, like myself, who are trying to, who want kind of some guidelines on how to, this almost ensures you're not going to write a crappy headline is what it does. And well, I'll just dive into it. So the 3 steps, the 3 aspects that a headline should have. 1, it needs to have either the word you or your in it, and that can be explicit or implied, and I'll give you examples of that later. It should include at least 1 verb, and you need to make a promise in the headline. Let me step back up here, because I need to look at some of these slides. I don't want to keep turning around. Okay, so I'm going to cover these rules, give you some examples. So these are some anti-patterns here. Yeah, lit up. So these are some anti-patterns of things not to do, and it's very, very common. I mean, I basically just looked around for software products in any niche, and you can find a gazillion of these. So let's look at this headline of AJ Classifieds. This is the headline. AJ Classifieds, V3 now available with various languages. Okay. This does not inspire me to act. It doesn't inspire me to do anything. When I come to your website should be built for first-time visitors. Always built for first-time visitors, because that's if it's your sales website. Because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to guide them into your funnel. And this doesn't really inspire me to click anything, or buy anything, or find out more, or do anything. This headline, I love these guys, by the way. This software is awesome. The headline is Collection Database Software for this and that. So it describes the software. And then there's some features here. Again, okay, that's good, but what does that solve my problem? What should I do next? There's a lot to this, right? It doesn't really get me excited about their product. Multi-carrier shipping software. So again, it's a description of the product. And this is the trap. This is the anti-pattern over and over and over and over. If you have a website, go look at your headline, and it probably describes your product. I've had many that have had to go back and rework because they just describe my product. This one says Introducing Testgraph 7. And actually the better headline is they buried the lead here. Look at this, create tests, exams, and surveys. That's actually a better headline. That has a verb in it, and it tells you what it does. It's like, oh, I need to create tests and surveys. So it actually helps me. But I think they changed this since then. But yeah, bottom line is Introducing Testgraph doesn't get me that excited. So here's some anti-patterns, things not to do. Don't say we are pleased to announce, because it's a we statement. And as a customer, I really don't care what you're pleased to do. I just want to hear it. I don't care that you founded in 1978. I don't care that you pretty much anything. If you have we anything, that it's bad. If you have the best, this is the best invoicing software, the best project management software, the best CMS downloadable ebook, it just doesn't matter. These are empty words, and they don't tell me how it solves my problem as someone who's trying to solve a problem. I'm at your site because I'm trying to solve a problem. Description of product. That's the other anti-pattern. We saw that a lot. So I come back to my 3 rules. Have you or your in the headline, and that can be explicit or implicit. Include a verb, make a promise. So now here are some design patterns, not anti-patterns, but actually things we should do. We're going to look at some examples. Let's look at this headline. Guaranteed to increase your organic search traffic. Okay, this is my product I talked about. Is there a you or your? Yes. Because it's you, right? The visitor comes, talking about them. Is there a verb? Yes. Increase. And is there a promise? Yes. I'm guaranteeing that if you use this software, that you will increase your organic search traffic. This is an app called GuideKit. He's an entrepreneur that I mentor down in Fresno. Impress your clients with stunning user manuals. Okay, there's a you or your. The verb is to impress. And what's the promise? The promise is that you're going to do two things. One, you're going to have study user manuals. And two, you're going to impress people with them. So he actually makes two promises, which is pretty cool. Groupon, I mean, these guys, yeah, masters of headlines. AppSumo's similar. Save 50 to 90% in Sacramento. Okay, is there a you or your here? Not explicitly, but implicitly what they're saying is you will save. It's a you statement. It doesn't have the word, but it says you will save 50 to 90%. The verb is save. The promise is that you're going to save, right? It's a four-word headline. It's a really concise, well-written headline. These guys are masters. Clicktail, record everything, convert everyone. So you can record everything, or you can convert everyone, or you will. So there's a you there. Record and convert are the verbs, and the promise is that you're going to convert everyone. BidSketch, Ruben is actually here in the audience. I'm an advisor to BidSketch, and so I been forced in to write this headline like this. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, he wrote this all on his own, and I was like, this is a great example. So again, you will create professional proposals fast. Create is the verb, and the promise is that you're going to create professional proposals, and you're going to do it quickly. Okay. So I've looked at good examples, bad examples, and we'll come back to the rules. So that's the segment. So take that and go either rewrite your headline or write your first headline using that. This segment was originally a big long hour-long workshop. There's more to it, but this is the core right here. Okay, so I have two intermissions in this thing because I'm not funny, so I need other people to be funny for me, so I have videos. Let's see if I can get this to play here without. And these tend to be only somewhat related.
This is a new house you're in? Yeah.
Okay, this is, oh no. Let me get back here. Has anyone seen this? It's Nathan Fillion, and he's on Jimmy Kimmel Live, and he's going to talk about Google Maps. Oh, I'll get this.
This is a new house you're in? Yeah. Well, it's a new house to me. They didn't just build it, but it's a new house to me. I moved not too long ago. There's always that.
Yeah, I should skip the intermission.
This is a new house you're in? Yeah. Well, it's a new house to me. They didn't just build it, but it's a new house to me. I moved not too long ago. There's always that. You're very excited about the new house, but there's always things you're going to miss about your old house. Okay. One of my big things I was missing about my old house that kind of made it hard to move was if you looked it up on Google, the Google Map did that street feature where it takes the map, pulls it up, and you're looking at the front of your house. You can see my cat. My cat. Maybe it is baby. So it's kind of like, oh, I'm not going to have that anymore.
Were you looking at it regularly?
Were you? You always gonna check it out the one time.
So you look and go like, hey, there he is.
There's a cat.
Okay.
And I was a little disappointed because I wouldn't have that feature in my house anymore. I'm standing on my porch. This wasn't 3 months ago. I'm standing on my porch, and the Google Map car is coming down the street. And
There's a car?
You can't miss it. There's all these big Google.
Oh, I've never seen that thing.
It's got giant robot eyes all over it, and devices on the wheels, and they know exactly where they are. They're taking pictures everywhere they go.
Wow.
Here they come. They're coming right down the. Oh, okay. I need a Google Map pose. I think this is very important. It's something everybody, I'm looking at you guys, everybody should think about is if the Google Map car is coming down my street, what am I going to do? And this was mine.
So So since I have actionable takeaways from all of my segments, if the Google Map car is coming down your street, what are you going to do? So think about that on your trip home. Two more segments here. Act 3 is I talk about the 4 tiers of customer need, or why boring products have a higher chance of success. I'm working on the second book, and this is probably going to be one of the chapters. I've been trying to figure out how to categorize product ideas and application ideas into a way that's helpful for us to understand how they work and how they're able to be marketed, and which kind of apps can be launched on the side, which kind of apps require full-time work, full-time sales. So I've come up with these 4 tiers, and it's based on 3 axes. The first axis is whether the product is sold on value or not, meaning does it save someone money or make them money? Does it save them time or make them time? And whether the need is obvious. So there's certain products that are so complex or so new. Even Facebook, when it first started, it's like, what is it? Like, the need is not obvious. Doesn't mean it's a bad product. Just means we're going to pivot on that axis. And the third one is whether people are actively looking for it through some venue, through some search engine, or somewhere where they're actively out looking for it, so that you're not having to do constant outbound high-touch sales. So there's 4 tiers here. And the 4th tier is entertainment. So this is games, not sold on value. They're entertaining, but they don't save someone money or make them money. The need is for a particular game is not obvious, and people don't. If you launched a game today, no one would be actively typing in your game name into Google or the App Store or anything. Right? So this is. Oh yes.
Would you include Facebook in that category as well?
Facebook might be. Yeah, it would probably be an entertainment, I would say, because it's not going to be in 3, which is complex new, because it's not sold on value. So yes. So anything like Facebook, social networks, even for the most part Twitter. Right? It's like you make relationships, but it's not actually, you're not saving time making money. Tier 3, I hate the name of this, I'm going to change it, but I originally called this enterprise, which everyone, instantly gives you a picture of what it is, but I realize there's software that's complex or new that is not actually enterprise software, so there's a higher level moniker I'm looking for. But let's just think about this as like enterprise software. So enterprise software is typically sold on value, right? They typically say it's going to make you money or save you money, make you time, save you time. The need often is not obvious because it's so complex or so new, and people don't tend to go out and type into Google, hey, I need a $4 million ERP software. And they might do a little research, but they're really not gonna actively look for it, buy it through those means. Tier 2 and Tier 1 are kind of our sweet spot in here. If you're more of being more of an independent developer or entrepreneur. Tier 2 is the vitamin tier, and this is where it is sold on value. If the need is obvious to someone, you're like, hey, I have time tracking software. No problem, right? Everybody, the need's obvious. I need to track time. But people may not actively be out searching for it. And then aspirin, if you think about it, this is where people have a really concrete need. So it's sold on value, the need's obvious, and they're typing a phrase into Google that you can just hop on, or they're typing something into the App Store that you can rank for and just get a massive channel of customers. So I'll get into why we care. It sounds a little theoretical right now. I'll get into why this matters. But I'm really going to focus, my experience is with 1 and 2. Since I'm a solopreneur, I really, I'm not going to be good at the Tier 3 stuff, and I don't really do games. So some examples to be a little more concrete. Tier 2 is that vitamin tier where it's sold on value, need is obvious, but people aren't actively looking for it. An app like AppSumo, or a company like AppSumo, you guys know it's daily deals for web geeks. It's like Groupon for web geeks. So it's like, information products and deals on SaaS apps and all kinds of stuff. So it definitely saves you time, makes you money, one of those 2 things. It definitely is, when you hear it, daily deals for web geeks, it's very simple. The need is obvious once you see it, but no one goes out and searches for that. So he had to do a lot of outbound marketing, inbound marketing, that kind of stuff. No one was just going to find him through a search term. And in salon management software, I happen to mentor a guy who's building this, and it's the same. There just really isn't. There aren't that many people searching for it, so it fits the other 2 things. Aspirin stuff is more like invoicing software, time tracking software, things that you're able to kind of find a customer search channel. So, yeah, the difference between 1 and 2 obviously is whether people are searching for it. And Tier 1, it is, I won't say it's better, but it certainly is easier to fulfill demand rather than creating it. But it doesn't necessarily I mean, there are probably a lot of folks in here who have vitamin apps, who have tier 2 apps. I have several of them. They're not a bad thing. Your market tends to be larger when you have it, but it's all a matter of how much time you have to invest in the marketing and the channels that you want to use. So the interesting thing about when I talk about this, the first time I gave it, someone said, well, is an aspirin, if I want to launch something, I want an aspirin app, right? I want something where there's a channel of folks searching for it. Is it just Google? Is that it? It's Google and Bing? And so I sat down and I spent 5 minutes and I wrote this list. And I know entrepreneurs who are making full-time livings from all of these channels, and I think I have about 10 of them up here, and they're all search channels. Google, of course, right? We all know SEO. Bing, we all know SEO. YouTube, third largest search engine. Enormous amount of traffic. And video marketing is highly, highly underutilized. Videos rank on the first page, typically in the top 5 of Google, way more often than if you just publish an article with the same name. Google really gives precedent to images and videos. WordPress.org. Number of people who have launched WordPress plugins and built entire mini empires out of this. There's an enormous ecosystem there. Amazon. Huge search engine, and people have their credit card on file. So anything you can get into Amazon, that's a killer search engine. One of the reasons that my book has sold well, especially recently, is it was linked to, it was the also buy, when you search for the Lean Startup book, everyone's probably heard of that, it was like the also buy. And so, boom, just being in there, I was getting 500 sales a month. It was crazy. The iPhone App Store, we've heard the success stories there, but it's a viable market. There's a lot of people. Craigslist. This is how Airbnb, wow, just search for Airbnb Craigslist spam. This is how they got their business off the ground. Someone did a big write-up of it. They don't do it anymore. They had to get over the network effect, right? Airbnb is a network of people who have a couch to rent, and then they need people to rent the couches. So it's really hard to get over that network effect of a chicken and egg thing. And they did it on Craigslist because they have so much traffic, and it's a huge channel you can't physically tie into, and you don't necessarily need to spam. The Android App Store is another one. Pinterest is another one. So there are more. This is what I put together in about 5 minutes. There are lots of what I call aspirin channels, right? They're channels where people are searching for things. And if you can get into one of those and rank really high, you can make the business. So I told you I'd talk about why this is important. Why should we care about this whole 4-tier thing? Aside from realizing the difference between aspirin and vitamin, and it's because of the difference in touch and what your cost per acquisition can be and what your lifetime value of a customer must be. Okay, so if you have entertainment, if you write a game, it actually doesn't really fit into my model very well, to be honest. Touch is how much time you need to spend with someone before they buy. So enterprise software is very high touch, right? You spend 6 months, long sales cycle, phone calls, maybe in-person visits. Whereas a $9 ebook is low or no touch, right? Someone might feasibly just click the buy now button on your website. You don't have to touch them at all. You never email them, talk to them. So that's kind of what I mean when I talk about touch. Complex new, again, enterprise software. High touch. Your cost to acquire a customer is very, very high because it is high touch, right? You have to hire salespeople or spend a lot of your time doing it. So as a result, your lifetime value of a customer, if you're going to launch into the enterprise, minimum must be $5K per sale. And typically it's $20K and over, and it goes into the millions. I've known very few solo entrepreneurs who've done this, or even small companies. I do know a few. The vitamin stuff, vitamin software, the vitamin tier. Your touch is moderate to low. Remember, this is like invoicing software, time tracking software, that kind of stuff. Your cost per acquisition, it can be done. Typically, you're going to have an email with a few folks. But your lifetime value, if you can't get it up to about $100, $150, if you can't get the lifetime value, so it's either a one sale thing where you're getting that out of one sale, or you're getting it over the lifetime if it's a recurring sale. If you can't get that, you're gonna have a really hard time making this a 5 or 10 year business. There just aren't many channels that are gonna get you a customer at that low cost. And then aspirin can be ridiculously low because you can rank number 1 in Google or the App Store. You can sell a 99-cent app and make millions, right? Your lifetime value does not have to be that large. The long-term prospects of that are dubious. I don't like $1 lifetime values. It kind of pains me that they exist, but there they are. So this is probably the money slide. This might be the most important slide or the most actionable slide of the whole thing. And again, you'll be able to download this. I originally had this as 9 different slides, and I've compacted it on one. These are marketing approaches that I've been using lately that have been working. And what I like about this, I've never seen this. When I was starting out, I was like, yeah, I hear about all these marketing approaches. People say, you know, do SEO and all kinds of other stuff. But I didn't know, like, how much does that cost? Does that scale? Like, can I build a business on that? Do I need to build a business on it? And what I finally realized after like talking about 10 different products, after doing all of these things, I realized that A, when you're first launching a product, you need to do a crap ton of stuff that doesn't scale. In the start, you need to do stuff that doesn't scale. And then you eventually, if you want to keep it around long term, you have to figure out how to get that to scale, meaning how to get it into more of a flywheel effect that continues. And I never saw cost per acquisition numbers. Yeah, I just want to give some to you now. So these are some little known marketing approaches, some more known that are working for me right now. First tactic is going on podcasts and not starting your own, but actually going on podcasts. Podcasts are crazy because they want interviewees, and if you can pitch them a decent story, you can spend about 30 minutes on the phone or Skype with them, and you can get an interview and mention your product. It may not be all about your product, hopefully it is, but I relaunched HitTail in January, so that's about 6 months, and I've been on a dozen podcasts. I pitched 13, and I've been on 12 of them. And it's because I had a decent pitch. I was like, hey, look at this rags to riches story. I bought HitTail a year ago. It was just crumbling. And I redid it, redesigned it, I relaunched it. You know, I did all this stuff to it. And so there's a decent story there. And you have to think of your decent story around your app, but it's pretty cool because you spend 30 minutes on the phone. You're not going to, it doesn't scale. There aren't an infinite number of podcasts. You aren't going to grow 10 million users with this, but you're trying to get those first users just to get some traffic and get some money in the bank. That's what podcasting is good for. Cost per acquisition is essentially zero. It's about 30 minutes to an hour of your time. And each podcast I did, I've gotten 10 to 100 trial signups, and based on my funnel of who converts, that's several $1,000s in my pocket, lifetime value for about an hour of work. Joint mailings are a big one that seem to be ignored these days. They're big in the internet marketing circles of like information products, but a lot of startups and micro SPs are not doing this. Basically, I'm doing this right now with HitTail. I had to go find who has mailing lists that cater to the people who understand SEO and who need organic traffic. And so I'm looking at these people, and I cold email them. Hey, here's who I am. Here's my blog. Like, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a real person. Here's my LinkedIn. And you build a little credibility for yourself, and you're doing basically a cold email pitch and saying, I have an audience, you have an audience, let's just, I like your product, let's talk about, you email yours, I'll email mine, and we'll, recommend. Obviously, the guy should try the product, the person should try the product first. You don't want to recommend something you haven't used, but again, there is a bit of time involved. The CPA is not actually zero, but, it's similar to the podcast. Guest posts on blogs are similar, a little more time required. But I have a couple guest posts in the works right now that I'm doing. Integrations, integration marketing is this phrase that I'm just high on right now. Actually, Ruben, who does BidSketch, which I mentioned earlier, is doing this really well. He contacts a large company, or I shouldn't say large, a SaaS app or an app with a large audience, and he says, I'm going to integrate with you. They have an API, and I'm going to do it so that you can export my customers into yours and import yours into mine. And I'm going to do a really nice landing page. Here's an example of it with a video. Would you be, if I do a good integration, would you be willing to mail your list once that's done? And that's the key. It's not just doing the integration. It's not just getting listed on their low traffic page that talks about integrations. It's actually getting them to email their list. And that will drive an enormous amount of sales in a 1 month span if you find companies with a big enough list. So FreshBooks, 37 signals type stuff, but anyone who has a large enough list is good. And it'll cost you some money because you're either going to have to spend time to code this thing or you hire someone to code it. But it's pretty cool. Again, it doesn't scale. None of these first 4 are going to grow a $1 million business, but they're the early days. This is your first 100, first 500 customers. The stuff that scales is the stuff we tend to hear more about. SEO, if you're good at it, do it. If not, learn it. Facebook ads, this is kind of the money one. I never knew what the cost per acquisition for a Facebook ad is. I realize that's a big ass range, but it's good to know that. It's good to know if you have the vitamin product, remember how I talked about, you really, you're gonna have to spend some time and spend some money to find people. Like, Facebook ads are right on the edge of whether you can, really scale that up if you have a vitamin product. AdWords are more expensive, totally, right now, than Facebook ads. I don't do cold calling, but I have a friend who worked at a call center and they knew all the numbers, and it's pretty expensive to acquire a customer. So, like I said, that's the money slide. You should be able to take at least some of these away that hopefully you're not doing and give it a shot here soon. Okay, I have another intermission. This is another video. Anyone heard of Louis C.K.? Louis C.K.? Yeah, all right. Cool. This is about a minute and a half video. He's on Conan.
Do you feel that we now, in the 21st century, we take technology for granted?
Well, yeah, because now we live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots that don't care, because this is what people are like now. They got their phone, they're like, it won't. Give it a second. It's going to space. Can you give it a second to get back from space? Is this true? Well, it's true. I was on an airplane and there was internet, high-speed internet on the airplane. That's
Yes.
the newest thing that I know exists. And I'm sitting on the plane, they go, open up your laptop, you can go on the internet. It's fast, and I'm watching YouTube clips. I'm in an airplane. And then it breaks down. And they apologize, the internet's not working. The guy next to me goes, this is bull. Like, how quickly the world owes him something he knew existed only 10 seconds ago. Right. And I'm playing.
So what I like about Louis C.K. is he's a comedian, but he's an entrepreneur. He got tired of he was going to release a comedy special, and he went to like Viacom and a couple others, and they're like, all right, we're going to make a DVD and sell it for 20 or 30 bucks, and they're going to get $2, And he said, no, I'm going to hire. He hired a crew, spent $250,000, and he hired a crew to follow him around to his comedy shows, and then they produced a video, and he put it on his website with no DRM, and it's $5 to download. And in about 10 days, he sold $1 million of this. Now he's a really popular comedian. He has an audience, but he's not huge. And he really sparked a movement. So he took the $250,000 he invested in the recording. He gave $250,000 to charity, and he gave $250,000 to the people, like all the crew, and just kind of bonuses, basically. Like, this is wildly successful. And then he took $250,000 for himself. He said it was the largest chunk of money he had ever had in his life. And this dude has his own TV show. Like, entertainers do not make money. I love that he's doing this. And actually, in the last week, he's now like trying to crowdfund his own TV show. I think. Is that what he's doing? Yeah, I just heard about it the other day. He's like really doing it. So it's like a good example for entrepreneurs everywhere. Okay. Fourth and final act. Hopefully the one you've been looking forward to the most. How to double the revenue you receive from each customer. So this is whether you've launched or not. We're going to look at lifetime value, which I've mentioned already, but I want to talk a little bit about what it means and why it's important. So lifetime value, of course, is the total amount of money you're going to receive from a person, a customer. These are real customers. I know I talk a lot about metrics and numbers and stuff, but I know like a crap ton of my customers in person, like they are real people. So you can't forget that. But it's the total amount of money you receive from a customer. That's what lifetime value is. And so if it's a one-time sale, obviously it's that amount, right? If you sell something for $19, your lifetime value is $19. If you have a SaaS app, there's a formula that involves churn and your average monthly price to figure it out. The way to be profitable, I have this rule of thumb, is that your lifetime value should be greater than 3 times your cost per acquisition. It's a loose rule, I'm still fudging around with it. I used to say lifetime value has to just be greater than cost per acquisition, but that doesn't make any sense, because then you have no profit. So 3 times is the rule I've heard, and I'm living by that now. So all of the marketing approaches I'm trying today with all my apps, I have to live by this rule, and if they don't hit that number, then I don't do it. The reason LTV is important, the reason we should talk about it, is that if you sell an app or an ebook, let's say, or a module or whatever for $19, and your competitor sells it for $19, you're competing head to head, right? And you're trying to figure out, should I drop my price? Should I be a little cheaper? How am I going to get customers when this person's trying to compete with me? Instead of worrying about all that, if you go off and just prepare one premium something for $329, $299 or $199, and whether that's 1 hour consulting, whether that's a super fancy lifetime support, whether it's something, right? A membership website, anything that is a high price point, and you get just a small segment of those people of your original purchasers to buy this $300 thing, then suddenly your lifetime value, the amount of money you receive from each customer, goes up dramatically. So now you have $85 per customer. So the question then is, your competitor is still selling his or her thing for $19. You now make $85 for essentially the same sale, because the CPA, the cost per acquisition on this second sale is 0. You don't need to spend any money, typically, follow-up sequencer or something like that. So can you break even on this $19? Could you? Your competitor can only spend $7 by my rule, right? $6. Maybe they're going up to 12 and playing with fire, but suddenly you can spend $19. You can actually spend a third of this, which is $25. You can spend more. You can lose money. You can do a loss leader, right? Which we thought only big companies can do, but it's really easy to do. It's called a back-end product or a back-end thing, and I'm going to talk about how to do that. And I've done this with a number of my apps. This is how I get one of these in the mail every month. $50 Barnes & Noble gift card and come to like a webinar, I think what it is. And how can they do that? How can they just give away $50? Well, because they know what their lifetime value is, and they know that it costs them way more than $50 to normally acquire a customer. So they can send this out. It's the same reason you see these affiliate plans like HostGator, which is web hosting. If you refer 1 to 5 people per month, they'll pay you $50. And if you get up over 20 people, you make $125 per referral. That's a lot of money, but you know what? They know what their lifetime value is, and they know that their cost per acquisition is typically higher than that. Yes, question?
Don't you find that if you offer an incentive program, that it will distort your acquisition costs because a higher number of people will opt in, some of which are really not customers?
You only offer so the question was, if you offer an incentive program or a back-end product, do you find that it distorts your cost per acquisition because non-customers might buy it or something? So typically, I only offer back-end products to existing customers. That makes sense? Because if they're non-customers, how am I going to reach them for 0 money? How am I going to reach them for no money? I would have to do marketing for that. So you could market it as a separate product, but that's not really kind of the focus of this. Lifetime value ranges, I kind of already talked about this. If you're an aspirin, you need 99 cents in a vitamin product. Between $150 and $500. If you hit $500, if someone in here has a lifetime value of $500, I need to high five you, because that is like a personal goal of mine. There are apps that get up beyond that, but that's a really nice, that's a nice amount of money to be able to play with. When I acquired Hittail, the lifetime value was about $90, and it's been a focus of mine to increase that so that I have more flexibility with how I can find customers. So now here's the meat of it, increasing. Right? I've kind of talked about why it's important, but it's like, here are 3 strategies for how to do this that I've done or seen done and have worked really, really well. I'm not talking 10% increases, I'm talking 50% increases or more. Just really 3 ways to do this. One is to increase retention if you have a recurring product. So if you have any type of recurring thing, is to keep more people around longer. We're going to look at how to do that. Second thing is to just increase your prices. Look at 2 different ways to do that. And the third is to sell more to your existing customers. That's the back-end sale that I've kind of referenced already, and a few other ideas. So again, 3 topics. First one is to increase retention. Okay, so if you have a recurring product, you want to keep people around longer. This is like the goal of keeping your churn down is incredible for increasing your lifetime value. The way to do this is to not wait until they cancel to email them and beg them to stay. It's to catch them before they know they want to cancel. To catch them before they know they want to cancel and contact them. Dharmesh Shah, who writes on startups, co-founder of HubSpot, he has a concept he talks about at Business of Software every year. It's called CHI. It's Customer Happiness Index. And all they did is they figured out some things that happy customers do, and they figured out things that unhappy customers do. And typically it's the opposite, right? Happy customers log in frequently. Unhappy customers don't log in at all. And so you can pull some data out of your database, throw it in a report, and sort it, and you have this CHI number. And they do it from 0 to 99, and then they just go down the list and have people call them and say, hey, we noticed you haven't logged in. Do you need help getting set up? And their ability to save accounts that we're going to cancel, their ability to keep their churn down, has increased dramatically. HitTail I've already talked about. As an example of some G factors, I went through HitTail and I spent like 10 minutes and I made a list of 12 G factors, 12 customer happiness factors. I'm only going to put 4 of them here for you so you can get an idea of how to look at it for your app. For me, happy customers, they install tracking code. So HitTail, you sign up, you get a little piece of JavaScript like Google Analytics code, you put it on your website, and then in real time HitTail analyzes the traffic. It gives you suggestions for keywords you should target using organic SEO. It's your underperforming keywords, your low-hanging fruit. First step, really, the people who stick with me, they install the tracking code. The people who cancel, they don't install the tracking code. So that's a first step. That's a big key factor for me. Another one is, are they actually collecting, do they actually have traffic coming in? Because if someone only has 200 uniques a month, we don't have very much data, we can't give them a lot of value, and it's really not worth their $10 a month. At about 1,000 or 1,500 uniques is where it is. So the more refers they get, the more value you're getting out of it. So that's kind of a sliding scale. That's a cheat factor. More traffic, higher cheat. How recently did they last log in, and has their organic traffic increased over time? Because that's really the goal, right? If their traffic's not increasing, they're not very happy. So these are 4, I had 8 others. So the question for you, the action that you should take if you want to do this, you want to keep people around longer, is to ask yourself, what are your cheat factors? What are your app's cheat factors? Seriously, 5-10 minutes, you should have 12 of them, or 8 to 12. And if you're a developer, you should be able to pull these out of your database, put it in a grid, and sort this thing in 2 to 4 hours. And that's all this should take. This is not rocket science. You're going to need to hone it over time. It's not going to be perfect the first day. You're going to weight things differently. You're going to have to think through, well, what does recency last log really mean? But don't overcomplicate this. It's pretty simple. Okay, so that was the first one, increasing retention. Second approach to increasing lifetime value is to increase your prices. And there's 2 ways to increase prices. There's a direct increase, and there's changing the structure of your pricing. All right? I've done both. Direct increase. So .NET invoicing software, when I acquired this like 7 years ago, they were charging $98 for the software, and I felt it was underpriced. We were selling a handful of copies a month. First month I bought it, I tripled the price to $295. I sold the same amount of copies every month thereafter. So in essence, I increased my lifetime value by 300%. The question involved, did you just get lucky? Well, you know, I tripled it and it happened to work. But if I stopped selling, I would have dropped it down to $199 and see what happened. Then I would have dropped it to $149 and see what happened. I was willing to play with this. So most of us tend to undervalue and undercharge for our product. As a general rule, we undercharge. So really think about this. The other way to do it, remember I said there's 2 ways to increasing pricing. It's a direct increase, and then there's changing the structure. So this is a direct increase. The way to change structure, BidSketch once again. So it's really hard, the reason I keep bringing up the same apps is because it's really hard to get people to give this info to you. It's kind of like, I don't want my competitors to know this, I don't want you to put this in a talk. So it's people who I mentor, who I advise, or it's my own stuff. And that's why I use the same apps. He had a $9 plan, $19 plan, and he restructured. He actually talked to a pricing consultant, he did a bunch of reading, and he surveyed and he looked in his data and he did a bunch of stuff. And so he essentially doubled his pricing, just one day, just doubled it. He grandfathered all existing customers in, which is a good way to do. It's even nice to announce it and say, we're gonna have a price increase in three weeks or a month on this date. Put it on your blog, email it, tweet it out, because you'll get this nice rush of people who have time constraints now to get a cheaper deal. So it's actually a decent marketing approach. He essentially doubled his pricing, 9 into 19. The 19 split into there, into the 29 and 99, depending on your how many whatevers you need, right? How many users, how many proposals you have to send each month. It's proposal software. So he restructured it based on the value customer receives. And it's been several months and his lifetime value is up 100%. He doubled his lifetime value. So if you think about that, if you were at $100 and you kind of you can kind of do some Facebook ads, well, at $200, you can totally, all day and all night, do a lot more approaches, and you can grow your business much faster. HitTail, told you I acquired it a year ago. Their pricing was goofy as all get out, $10 and $30 a month with weird. It was not based on the value customers received at all. They could get up to 100,000 uniques a month, and it was like the same price. It was I never really did understand it, to be honest. So I just restructured it into tiers. 10, 20, 40, 80, and I base it on the monthly website's visits, because the more visits you get, the more data we have, the better suggestions we can give you. It's just a linear relationship. And so, same thing, my LTV is only at 50%, but still, that's a nice bit of change to either use to acquire customers or to put in the bank. So 2 questions to ask yourself is, 1, are you underpriced? Could you raise your pricing and grandfather existing customers? And 2, does your pricing increase with the value a customer receives? The worst thing you can do is have 1 tier or 2 tiers that are $9 and $19, because there is always a company that wants to come through and just buy the highest tier, and if it's $99 or $199 and it's called the enterprise or the whatever plan, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. This happens. They really just want the high-end thing. So having a high-end plan and increasing with the value is a big way to increase your lifetime value. The third and final, this is the last point of the whole talk, the third and final way to increase LTV that I've seen work really well, and I've done this over and over, is to sell more to your existing customers. This is kind of like that back-end sale I talked about. And there's 3 different ways to do a back-end sale. One is to add support and upgrades. So I have .NET Invoice, which is one-time download, $329, and our LTV was stuck at $329 forever. And then we realized, wait a minute, no-brainer, right? Charge 20% a year and get support and upgrades. So we did. We increased our LTV pretty substantially from there. Add-on modules. So with .NET Invoice, we said, well, invoicing software should sync with QuickBooks, and we sell this thing for $99. So we don't sell it to everybody, but we sell it to maybe 10, 20% of people who come through. So now, at 0 cost, well, not 0 cost, but 0 recurring cost, right? We had a one-time development cost. At 0 cost, we've now increased our LTV for life, for everything. And the third one, this is my favorite one recently, and I've had a great success with it with Intel, is to actually add services to it. And as product developers, you don't like services, right? I got out of consulting because I want to provide services. But there are some kind of cool ways to do it if you think creatively. One of them is, this is an example, Raven Tools is an SEO tool, and they have a keyword suggestion tool, not as good as Intel's, of course, but it's similar. And they just integrated with a third party called TextBroker. And so they suggest keywords, and then instead of you having to go write an article based on those keywords, you click a button in Raven Tools, and they charge you $30, and you get an article back in 2 days. And it's good stuff. I mean, it's a good writer. It's not like sent to India. It's like someone who is a native English speaker here in North America. I did this with Intel, and I've increased my LTV just by doing, I just did this exact same thing. I launched about 30 days ago. I integrated with TextBroker. I did the exact same thing. And almost a 50% LTV increase in the last 30 days. It's early, right? I mean, next month it could be smaller, but so far on pace to do that. So I have a lot more money to either put in the bank or acquire customers with. The question I ask you is, there's three options here. What else can you offer your customers? Can you add support? Can you add a module? Can you add a service? Kind of aside here, after your LTV is greater than 3 times your cost per acquisition, if you've ever thought of raising funding, this is the time to do it. This is when you get enormous valuations. I've never raised funding, but I'm not anti-funding. I'm anti-people coming with an idea and saying, I want $10 million for it. That's what I don't like. What I love is when someone has built a business that has hit this milestone and can scale it, and then coming and saying, I want to raise money on my terms. Because at this point, this is like putting $1 into a machine and getting $3 out over the next 6 months or a year. That's really what this is. So all you need, you want to put as much money into that machine as possible. So you may only have 10, 20 grand in the bank, but if you raised $1 million, stuff into that machine, you get $3 million out of the next. That's what the smart people who are smart and raise funding, in my opinion, they do this because you just need the cash to insert into the machine. So it's more of an aside, but I find that this helps people understand when it's good to raise funding and not. So that is the end of my talk. softwarebyrob.com/slides.pdf. If you want to download those, connect with me on Twitter, and then this is the really poorly designed cover of my book. But if you're interested in this kind of stuff, check out my blog. Tons of free stuff. If you're into podcasting, I have one of those too. It's also free. And then my book is $19. So start small, stay small. Thanks a lot for having me. I don't know, Sue, do we have time for questions, or do we want, I know we're over time at this point. I think we're just at about an hour.
3 questions.
3 questions? 2 questions? A few, okay. All right, so raise your hand, and then I'll probably repeat your question after you, just to make sure it gets on the recording. Yes?
At the beginning, you talked about you're putting up a one-page website and getting emails and things like that. How do you get traffic for that?
Yeah, so the question is, at the beginning I talked about like putting up a landing page and sending some traffic to it and collecting emails to try to build a list. How do you get traffic to that? So 2 things I'll say. That's a large topic, right? That's kind of like the how do I market a product question, right? There's a lot of ways to do it, but what I recommend is 2 things. One, wrote a blog post called the 5-Minute Guide to Cheap Startup Advertising. So if you have a little bit of money, a few $100 to kind of toss, you can get some cheap clicks from Reddit, BuySellAds, a couple other places. So just look through there. The other thing is using your network. Like if you have Twitter followers, if you have even a smaller blog, if you have friends who have smaller blogs, if you have anyone who's in the niche, just try to get the word out. You're not trying to build, we're not Dropbox. We're not going to build a 200,000 person list. But just getting a couple thousand people to that list you're going to develop for 4 months, 6 months if you're building that. So that's a long time. You can send a few thousand people to that list over time. And if your thing is pretty targeted, if your landing page is pretty targeted, I think my book landing page converted at 40% of uniques to emails. So that's a pretty good one. 15 to 20% is more closer, right? So if you send 2,000 uniques and you get 20%, that's 400 people. You can probably send 2,000 uniques just being super scrappy and creative over the course of 6 months. So that helps. Other questions?